Hello and welcome into the KE Report. I'm your host, Shad Markwitz, and today we're getting an update on Dolly Varden silver, traded on the TSX.V under the ticker DV and on the OTCQX under the ticker DOLLF. And we're joined today with the president and CEO of Dolly Varden Silver, Shawn Khunkhun. And Shawn, it's great to get you back on the show. We just chatted a couple weeks back, just a big picture talk, but this is exciting because you got some of the first drill results from this year's drill program out at the Kitsault Valley Project. And just as a reminder for folks listening in, the Kitsault Valley Project is in the southern tip of the Golden Triangle in British Columbia. And this is a big resource that now has about 140 million ounces of silver equivalent in the indicated and inferred category, so in all categories. But it's about 50-50 gold and silver between the Homestake areas and some of the Dolly Varden silver areas. So these results come from two targets that you've been working out, the Moose and Chance targets. And I'd love you to unpack the recent drill results, Shawn. What does it mean? What are these early indications from this drill program? What does the exploration team think of these?
Shad, grateful to be on and a happy summer to all your listeners. So, you did a nice summary of what Dolly Varden is. And, I look at a lot of silver companies and I've been professionally investing in the silver space and the gold space for 20 years. And I'll tell you what we have going at Dolly Varden is very, very rare. Coming up with a primary high grade silver mine in a safe jurisdiction. It's a unicorn project. We've got a 15-kilometer trend. And what the team has been able to identify is every 1 mile, there is a new deposit. And so there is a periodicity. And so starting in the southern end of the property, you've got the historic Dolly Varden silver mine, which was the richest silver mine in the British Empire when it was in production with average grades over 1,100 grams per ton. And then as you go north, and it's the precise distance is 1,400 meters. Every 1.4 kilometers, there's another deposit. So as you go up the valley, the most notable deposit has been the Torbrit mine. So this was a mine that when it was in operation was Canada's third largest silver mine with average production grades of 466 grams per ton. Now, a big part of our resource is from that Torbrit mine. And when I first came in and took over as CEO back in February of 2020, the question I had to the team was, how many 50 million ounce silver deposits are on this land package? And as we went further up north, we uncovered the Wolf deposit. And the Wolf deposit is demonstrating it's got the size and grade potential as Torbrit. And what makes these projects so unique is that not only are they high grade, but the Torbrit mine is as wide as 50 meters. So it's potentially amenable to bulk mining, which is a low cost mining method. And as we go further north, the team has uncovered now two more pearls on this string of pearls, and that is Moose and Chance. And if you go back into the long history of the project, exploration has been on and off on this property for 100 years. You can find data, and some data as recently as last year's drill season at Moose or the 2019 drill season at Chance. But what we're starting to do here is get a very distinct understanding of not only the repeating pattern, the periodicity of new deposits every 1.4 kilometers, but the reason we've had a higher degree of success than previous management teams and previous explorers in the past is we have got a understanding of the geometry of the plunge of the dip of the mineralization. And what we've uncovered is there is a similarity between Wolf, the Kitsault vein, which is part of the Torbrit resource, Moose, and now Chance. So, it's not only identifying these breaks every 1400 meters, but now we've got the orientation of the dip, of the plunge, of the geometry of the mineralization. And that's why we've been able to uncover the expansion, the extension, and the growth of these high grade silver veins.
Yeah, Sean, I think that's so significant because a lot of companies maybe hit a lucky hole once in a while, but like you're saying, there's a periodicity to this deposit where they keep showing up every 1400 meters, and the dip also seems to align on this Chance and Moose veins with the dip in the Wolf deposit. So your team has what we would say dialed it in here, Sean. And when you also look at the grades, they're pretty eye-popping. 977 grams per ton over 5 meters at the Moose vein, including 3,600 grams per ton silver over 0.79 meters. Sometimes in a Mexico deposit or a South American deposit, you may only get that 0.79 meters, but you wouldn't have the 5 meters. Or looking at Chance, 23 meters at 206 grams per ton silver. And then a higher grade portion of that, 597 grams per ton silver over 1.4 meters. Again, in something like a Latin American deposit, you may only get the 1.4 meters, but not the 23 meters. So maybe just speak to these large widths. You kind of alluded to it, but how that would help the economics tie together on a project like this.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. When we go looking at opportunities that go beyond our property borders, a lot of the things that we come across, we pass on. And the reason for that is because developing a narrow, deep underground deposit is expensive from the exploration standpoint, from the development standpoint. Your costs are going to be higher from the production standpoint. And so, what makes Dolly Varden unique is not the extreme high grade over a few meters, it's the strong economic grades over tens of meters. There was a drill hole that we put out in February where we drilled 93 and a half meters of 357 gram per ton silver. So it's just incredible. Now on the gold side, there was a drill hole that was 60 meters of 15 grams of gold. And so it's not only on the silver side that we're seeing these big systems, these big wide systems, we're also seeing it on the gold side. Now, there is extreme high grade within there. There is. And that we note that in our headlines. But there's, if we were to remove that high grade, it's still some very, very, very impressive numbers around the high concentrations. And I'm just so pleased that our team, we've got a full-time team, a dedicated team of, scientists that have worked tirelessly at uncovering, it's a great, like I come into the office, the market's open in Vancouver, it's at 6:30, I'm in the office before the open, and my exploration team will be there. They'll be there. And as I'm out there talking to investors, they're hunting for silver. They're motivated, they've been successful, and back to back 2022 and 2023, they've put out the best drill results in all of the Golden Triangle. And just a couple of notes on the triangle, you've got Ascot, pouring gold at Premier. You've got Skeena, who just did a phenomenal project financing deal where they're fully funded now. So you've got the SK Creek mine going back into production. You've got Premier going back into production. You've got Newmont producing at Brucejack. And I've always thought this Dolly Varden had the potential to be like one of the greats up in the Golden Triangle, and these drill results are validating that thought.
Yeah, Sean, it's an exciting time for the Golden Triangle, and we've been following some of that news here on the show. And it's also an exciting time for your exploration team on the ground as a savvy geologist, but also treasure hunting and hitting pay dirt the last couple of years. When you look at these, and there's an image that I may include below this interview that shows where the Chance drilling is, where the Moose vein is, and then also where the Wolf vein and where all that drilling is. And it just gives maybe listeners here a sense of where these all are at. But you've mentioned before, and we alluded to it in our last interview, that there is a theory that all of these deposits possibly tie together at depth into one larger system. Maybe just speak to that point that all of these deposits repeating and repeating and repeating may be part of a larger system.
It's a great point. And we threw out a bunch of ideas when we took over the company, and we had a long road to plow to validate these ideas. And one of the first ideas we threw out was connecting deposits, that this was part of a larger system. And as we have proven periodicity, as we have proven plunge, the next step is to prove connection. And what we're seeing at Homestake is between the Homestake silver deposit and the Homestake main deposit, where, in a compliant resource estimate, you've got 1 million ounces of gold and 20 million ounces of silver just up at Homestake, forgetting the rich Dolly Varden package that's just a few kilometers to the south, that we own 100% of the whole package. But up at Homestake, we've bridged the gap to only 300 meters. There's only 300 meters that separate those two deposits. And so we are very close. This could be the season where we absolutely close that gap and show the link. The other part is between Wolf and the Kitsault vein, which makes up the Torbert resource. We're starting to see, as we drill in between that gap zone, we're honing into the structures. And with those structures, inevitably, I think we'll be able to prove grade. And just to give you a little bit of background on that, when the Wolf expansion first started, and it was this is another breakthrough moment. We drilled below the sedimentary cap. No explorer had done it. We found the Jurassic Age Hazelton Formation persisted below the sediment caps. We hit the high-grade silver mineralization below the sediments. Why that was so significant is no one ever had looked there, because some of the geophysics and geochem couldn't penetrate that cap. But when we first tagged it, the numbers weren't spectacular. They were 17 meters of 215 grams of silver. For me, I've been spoiled with richer grades on this project, so I wasn't, that excited. But the team knew better. They saw that we needed to keep pressing in the area. And the next hole was 15 meters of 1,500 grams of silver, including 23,000 grams per ton over 0.35 meters. And that was from a depth of only 30 meters below surface. So my point here is, if you look at the Moose, when we drilled Moose last year, we hit about 7 meters of 270 grams of silver. What we've honed into now is grades that are almost 5 times as high, almost 1,000 grams per ton over 5 meters. My point here is that chance hole that you quoted, the 23 meters of 200 grams of silver, right next to it, there's a 26.5 meter hole of 448 grams per ton silver. So, what we're seeing on average is about, on a silver equivalent basis, about 420 gram per ton silver EQ on the entire 64 million ounce silver deposits that are 43-101 compliant. It makes Dolly Varden one of the richest silver deposits. If you look at a company that's, got over 100 million ounces silver EQ, and we've got closer to 150, but this is one of the richest, in terms of looking for size meets grade. And then, what just blows this project out of the water is the fact that it's in a safe jurisdiction, especially, I don't know if you saw the news out of Bolivia this week with the attempted coup, but, we're in Nisga'a territory. And I got to shout out, the Nisga'a just listed Nations Royalty, NRC, which is Canada's largest Indigenous owned public company. And it's got the royalties of some of the big projects in the Golden Triangle, including some of the ones I mentioned earlier, like Newmont's Bruce Jack, and like Ascot's Premier at Red Mountain, Seabridge's KSM. So, we are, the number one challenge that mining companies face, and a lot of investors don't appreciate this, is access. It's not grade, it's not tonnage, it's not metallurgy, it's access. And the fact that the Nisga'a listed this nation's royalty, and the fact that Dolly Varden's project is in their traditional territories, and we're one of the largest employers of Nisga'a people as a company, and we've got an incredible relationship with them, and they are such a pro-business and creative group. Just wanted to highlight that point.
Yeah, Shawn, I'm glad you did. I've been following the news with the Nisga'a First Nations royalty company coming online, and they are great partners to have. And it just speaks to the jurisdiction point you made, that the access, not just the community partners that you have with the Nisga'a, not just the popularity and success going on in the Golden Triangle right now and the access to it, but also you have an access road, and it goes right down to the Tidewater, and you have two different ways to get material out of the area, by water. And you also have just good infrastructure in the town nearby of Stewart. And I think it maybe be nice to just talk about infrastructure, what that would mean for development potential of all of these different resources that you're finding in the ground.
So this project used to produce. So back in 1919, it was economic. Throughout the 1950s, it was economic. There was a narrow gauge rail line from the Torbert Portal down to Tidewater at Alice Arm. We've converted that narrow gauge rail line into a road. We've got a special use permit on that road. There's BC hydropower lines that go into the town of Kitsault, which is a fully permitted mine site just south of the property. There's roads into Kitsault. Highway 37 just goes to the north of the property. There's a regional airport that's just a few hours away. There's daily flights from Vancouver. It's an hour and a half flight up to Terrace, and then it's a drive to site, and that's how our crews come in. But like as you mentioned, there's multiple ways into site. We actually have opted, instead of driving heavy equipment to site, we've actually opted to barge it up. We found that to be the most cost-effective way to bring in the drills and the different equipment we need up at site. And so we barge it up from Prince Rupert, which is just south of Alice Arm. So we are on Tidewater. And what the company did a few years ago is I tied up the surface rights at Tidewater, and it's where we have our camp and over 100,000 meters of core. And so, when I envision future development in this new era, this was a past producer at two different times over the last 100 years, and I believe, history repeats. And, as we go, if you look at when the area got active in the past, I'm talking about the larger area, the town of Stewart and whatnot, it was throughout the, just after the Great Depression, throughout the Great Depression. And what really got the North through some very, very hard financial times was gold mining, silver mining. And one of the reasons I came to focus here at Dolly Varden was I thought with debt levels, with currency wars, with trade wars, and now all out wars, we were moving back into a time where gold and silver were going to be very relevant. And I think what's going to get the North through what could be a potentially tough time in our future is these gold and silver mining opportunities. And so that's why we're doing what we're doing. And we've just been blessed with a very prospective property, a very motivated team, and we couldn't do it without the shareholders, including yourself, Shad. So we're grateful for Hecla, for Eric Sprott, for all the institutions like Fidelity, and shareholders like you and others, listeners.
Well, and Shawn, just as we wrap up, I think it'd be nice just to look ahead to all of the drilling that your team is still doing. This is a 25,000-meter drill program, and these are just some of the earliest results from the Moose and the Chance veins that you've put out. But just remind us of all the targets that you're going after this year. There's other new targets, as well as some intense drilling at the Wolf deposit and in the Homestake area.
So this was a very interesting year. We were up at site in February, which is unheard of. Previous management teams wouldn't hit the ground until July. We were up there in February, and we brought our crews up in April. We started drilling in May. We've never had an earlier start to the year. We've already got 10,000 meters of drilling accomplished, and it's not even July 1st. We've hit a lot of exploration targets. Big meters at the Wolf deposit, where we're doing directional drilling, which will enable us to really precisely pinpoint where we want to get these multiple structures that are bringing in the silver mineralization. So we've completed 30 holes. We've completed 10,000 meters of drilling. We've put out 2 holes. We've got a lot of samples that are in the assay lab, and we're expecting results imminently. And where we're going to go here on Canada Day is we're going to go up to Homestake and we're going to go and follow up on the 12.5 meters of 79 grams of gold that we tagged in a brand new gold discovery at the tail end of last year. It was one of the last holes we drilled, and there's an analyst over at Haywood that upon his initiation called it the next Brucejack. And so we're going to go follow up to see if there's some validation to that idea. And we're going to try to see if we can build up some tonnage at that new gold zone. But, Shad, there may be a decision made by our technical committee that may make a recommendation to our board of directors that we add meters. It's happened in the last 3 previous seasons, and it could happen again. So we could, the way at the rate we're going, we're on time, we're on budget, everything's happening safely. We should be actually completed all these 25,000 meters by September 1st, which gives us a lot of season ahead. And we've actually, with $18 million in the bank right now, we have the budget to keep going. So based on some of this early success, I'd like to keep drilling into the fall, but we'll let the technical committee and the board make that final call. And, we'll let the next assays drive exactly where those additional meters may go.
Well, that's exciting news for people listening in. And yes, you have expanded the drill programs in seasons past. And I think it was a big boon for the whole team to get on there so early in May this year and start drilling. You've already got a lot of drilling done. And like you say, you're on target to maybe finish up a little early and have some time for some additional meters. So we'll keep following along with the news. A lot of drill results still to be released, obviously, from all these different areas. And if people listening into the call would like to follow along with the news, definitely click on the link below this interview. It takes you right over to the company website, straight to their news section, so you can also follow along. And Shawn, keep us posted as more assays come back in. We'll get you on for an update, and looking forward to our next conversation.
All right. Thanks so much, Chad. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Canada Day. Happy 4th of July next week, and all the best.